Now I'm going to be demonstrating with this black rope. Like I said, you can choose any color or any size you like. And just a dry run of what I'm going to do, we're going to take one end here. We're going to sew a small loop about that size on one end. And once this is sewn on, we'll take the other end of the leash here and we'll run it through. Tangled here. And this is going to be the head section. And then once that's done, you can choose any type of thread, any color thread you like to start sewing. I'm going to use the purple on the black this time. And what I'm doing is just taking some thread off of the holder here. Gonna need a pretty good amount. And don't worry if you don't get enough, because you can always add more later. Gonna cut it. Now I am left-handed. So if you're right-handed, you might be working on a different side. I'm going to try to kind of move back and forth. I'm going to be doing mostly left-handed things here. So just feel free to extrapolate what I'm doing here if you're right-handed. Now in order to thread the needle, and this needle shouldn't be too bad to thread. It has a pretty big eye, as you can see. Sometimes if the eye's a little thinner, and if your thread is a little splayed or frayed, what you can do is kind of wet it a little bit, twist it, and that you can wet it with spit or with water, kind of pat it down, and then it's a little easier to get through the eye. Okay. Once you get it to about the size you like, you're going to just push the needle through one end. And out through the other end. Now for those of you who sew, you might want to use a thimble for this. This one's a little tighter than normal. Sometimes I'll just use a table and I'll push down if it's kind of tight. As you can see, my needle was a little bent from doing a lot of this with this needle already. And you just pull it all the way through. And then you just keep sewing. I'm going to bring it back down and push the needle through the other end again. So I'm just pressing down on the table here. You can use a thimble if you like. Don't have to. And I'm pulling it through. And see how it makes a little loop there. Let's pull it through here. I'm going to bring it back down to the same side. and I'm going to push up through. And I like to pull tight. Now remember, you're going to be walking dogs with this, so it doesn't hurt to kind of overdo it a little bit and just sew as many loops as you feel comfortable. It's not going to come loose. You can also flip it over. Now the thread has gone all the way through both sides, but I like to still sew on the other side as well, just to make sure it's as sturdy as can be. Do the same thing over here, just run it through. And what you can also do, you can do the same thing on this side, and then as you're doing it, just to pretty it up a bit, you can start spinning, and this is after you've sewn it quite a bit, you can start wrapping it around like so. This just makes it a little sturdier, and it looks a little better than having those loops. And you could wrap it a little bit, then you can sew again. And keep wrapping and sewing and wrapping and sewing. And once you have it pretty steady, what you can do is kind of tie it off. I like to go, and when I'm ready to finish it, what I like to do is kind of sew in exactly the same place for a few steps. I'll also wrap the thread around the needle. So notice how I'm going back in the same place I just went in to kind of knot it up. And then I'm going to wrap the thread around the needle, maybe once this first time, just trying to make a little loop here so it won't unravel when we're done. Then go back to the same spot again and maybe wrap it twice just to get a good loop going. And like I said, if you run out of thread, it's not a big deal. Just wrap it up and then just cut another piece of thread. This isn't completely done, but it just gives you a gist of what we're doing here. And once you have it as sturdy as you like it and as much thread as you like, you don't want it to move around too much. Like, see, this moves around a little bit more than I like because it's not really finished, but this gives you an idea. You want to keep sewing until you're comfortable, until it's nice and sturdy. And you know it's not going to come loose. And then once you're done, you're just going to cut. And now you're going to take the end like I showed before, and you're going to run it through. And now the head is done. The dog's head will go through here. Pretend that the wrist is the dog's neck. And you have the slip lead part, the top part of the slip lead done. And this will stay looped through here. And notice how you can adjust it depending on how big or small the dog is. Now we go to the other end. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we just did, except we're going to make a bigger loop. And here is a rudimentary version of the entire no frills slip leash. The handle for the hand, like I said, I've only sewed a little bit here, and the part for the head. The dog's head goes in here. And like I showed you earlier, this is one that was already completed, and as you can see, I wrapped it around several times to make it more sturdy. to make sure it doesn't come loose on you if you have a dog that pulls pretty hard. And this is just the other end, or the handle. You notice I wrapped it around several times.